Today on Locked On Red Wings, Tyler Bertuzzi's on the trade block and also previewing that matchup against the Vancouver Canucks.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. Scotty, of course, also host over at Locked On Tigers. And I want to thank you guys for making us your first listen every single day. We are free and available on all platforms. Crossed 500 subscribers, Scotty. Happened overnight. Woke up in the morning. I was like, oh, hey, it's there.
One of my boys texted me at like, I don't know, 2 a.m. It was like, hey, guess what? And I responded what, and then I went to bed after I said what and didn't get the text till the next morning. But he was like, yeah, I'm gonna be honest, I unsubscribed when you guys had 500 to get to 499, then resubscribed so I could be 500. I was like, thanks, brother, appreciate it. Shout out Sam for 500.
500 for the second time. Because he unsubscribed to get us back below the marker, to get us back to the marker.
Get us to I don't know if he unsubscribed. We were at 499 and then waited, or whether he was at 500 and did it. But he was technically 500. Yes,
that's funny. That's a really funny way of doing it. Do we congratulate somebody if we were at 500 and he unsubscribed to go to 499? Do we thank him or we go, what the hell, man? We just got to the marker and you took it from us.
Yeah, I agree, man. I agree.
So yesterday, I texted you a tweet that had started to make its rounds on social media. It was Frank Seravalli of Daily Faceoff. He made a radio appearance, and he said that Tyler Bertuzzi is available. So Steve Yzerman has basically said there are two untouchables on this team. And that is Lucas Raymond and Moritz Seider. And there's some deeper implications to that. He didn't say Dylan Larkin, which is a little bit
weird
for sure. But Tyler Bertuzzi being open for business in trade talks. Now, we had heard tell that back during the summer, Yzerman was not necessarily shopping him, but taking phone calls. But I thought with how Bertuzzi had played during the first half of the season, that those trade rumors had kind of dissipated, that he had kind of set himself up as a cornerstone of this team going forward. But here we go, less than a week from the trade deadline, and we're hearing rumors that Tyler Bertuzzi is being shopped or on the block, or he's taking phone calls, however you want to say it. And I guess my question for you, Scotty, is, do you think that's the right move? How much truth do you think there is to this matter?
Well, I think those are two very different questions, brother.
Yeah.
I will say this. There is no chance for people that are anxious about it or whatever. There is a 0% chance that Steve Yzerman is just going to trade Bert to trade Bert, and you're going to be upset with the return. He's only going to do this if everyone is chill with the return on a pretty universally accepted type of return, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I don't see any universe in which Bird is traded and it's like, oh yeah, like we got, a third round pick. That's an exaggeration, but you get what I'm saying. I don't think there's going to be any misconception or any like, oh, like we could have gotten more. I think it's going to be, okay, we traded Bert and we got something for it. Now, on the should they type of thing, there's a wild misconception. In my eyes, it's a misconception. Maybe you disagree and we can have a discussion about it. I don't think that trading Bert is like this thing that's gonna like, oh, the rebuild set back now, or oh, we're not as close to competing as we thought. We still have like 2 to 3. I've even seen 4 years until we compete again. That's I wholeheartedly disagree with that. You don't only trade people for draft picks. That's not how you can trade someone for a hot 22-year-old prospect. You know what I'm saying? Like
What happened last year?
Right. And you look at the Mantha return, you get 2 firsts and you get a guy who has been one of, if not our best pure scorers when he's been on the ice. You can do that type of trade with somebody who gives you multiple people of that regard. This notion that, oh, if you trade Bert, that means like we're not as close to competing as we thought and it's going to be another 2 to 3 years is preposterous to me.
Yeah, I go back and forth on that whole debate. And actually, there's been multiple people I follow on Twitter that I have a ton of respect for their opinion on Red Wings hockey that differ on that very matter. Like you just said, the two dissenting opinions on the matter is Red Wings aren't ready. But by the time the Red Wings are ready to compete, Bertuzzi is going to be out of his prime. His value is never going to be higher. Trade him. Or another guy saying, they hold on to Bertuzzi this offseason, make moves to make the team better. And it really comes down to, honestly, I think this 10-game stretch has had a huge impact on the decision. Obviously, the Red Wings were never going to buy at this deadline. It just wasn't the right environment for it. But the wheels have absolutely come off. And I think it's the gears have shifted now because while they're not tanking, they're tanking down the standings, even intentionally or not.
They're not competing, yeah.
They're not competing anymore. Whether or not that's just a bad coaching, bad motivation, that's up for debate. But I think this last 10-game stretch right before the trade deadline has definitely shifted the gears towards selling at the deadline rather than standing pat. And now with guys like Ben Sherratt getting a first-round pick, a 30-year-old defenseman whose advanced metrics do not look favorably on him, just netted a first-round pick. I mean, you have a guy like Tyler Bertuzzi who could get you a haul. But then, again, the core of that belief goes back to how far away do you think this team is? If you trade Bertuzzi, is that signaling that, yeah, you're still a couple more years away? And, like, part of me, and I hate to be a fence sitter, I really do, Scotty, but I honestly, I'm not sure. Because you hold on to Bertuzzi and you make a splash in free agency, I think the team could compete as early as next year for a playoff spot. But if you want to wait until the team's got a more solid of a foundation, you trade Bertuzzi, get a couple of young prospects or first-round picks because, I mean, that the market is set now, and the Red Wings could get a haul for a guy like Bertuzzi. You could really set yourself up well in the future, but then again, you're assuming prospects pan out.
Yeah, completely. And the fact that, again, if you like, there's just the notion that if you trade Bert, it's going to be for a bunch of, draft picks and a bunch of dudes that aren't going to be in the NHL for like 2 to 3 years is just preposterous. Like that's not the case necessarily. And you can absolutely trade him to a team with a loaded farm system that is competitive and can still use him. So I don't know. Pick a team, New York, for like the Rangers, for instance. You know what I mean? Like
who
great
use
farm,
a versatile top 6 forward.
Right. Very like having a good season, could absolutely use help and have a really, really good, young bed of talent that they can maybe afford to lose some of those guys. And if you get 2, even 3 NHL ready young prospects that all have pretty like reasonably bright futures, that puts you still in line to compete as early as next season, just as it is with Bert on the team. Like it's there. It's wild to me how many people just assume, oh, if we trade, and this isn't even me advocating like, hey, we need to trade Bertuzzi. That's not what I'm saying. All I'm saying is if it does happen, that there is no, oh, this sets the rebuild back, or oh, we're behind now, or oh, I thought we were a lot closer competing. Like that's just not true at all in my eyes.
Yeah, it's just that's where it gets tough because you get a player like Bertuzzi who's so last year when Mantha got traded, it made sense because he was underperforming his contract. You signed him to an extension, he wasn't performing well. Bertuzzi's that's not the case. He's been playing incredibly well this season.
Absolutely.
That's why it's hard when you talk about trading a guy. The futures you could get back out of him would be insane. I mean, you're talking for at least at minimum a first round pick and a prospect, but is it worth getting up a guy who can help you compete in the short term? What does that short term look like? And we'll continue this conversation because I'll read off his stat line and his contract situation and his age, and we'll get into that and more the nitty gritty parts of it. But first, I got to talk to you guys today about BetOnline.net. It's that time of year, and college basketball tournament is finally upon us. From all the latest odds, contests, and player props, BetOnline.net is the number one source for all your sports betting needs and info. BetOnline remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just basketball. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sport wagering information needs, including live betting and your favorite Vegas casino games. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, Scotty.
BetOnline.
BetOnline.
I wanted to sneak up on it there.
You did. You snuck it up on me. Tyler Bertuzzi just turned 27 this February 24th. He's got one more year left on a $4.5 million a year contract. He's got 48 points, 24 goals, 24 assists in 50 games played, so just under a point per game. And his next point will set him as a career best. Frank Seravalli, in his report on the trade possibility, his trade board, said that one team this week referred to Bertuzzi as an incredibly annoying, slightly less skilled version of Brad Marchand. That, of course, was meant as a compliment. Yeah, I mean, he would be a great piece on a team that's trying to win right now to then extend him and keep their window open. The biggest reason I'm hearing why people are pro trade Bertuzzi is because of the fact that he's 27 and they don't see the Red Wings being competitive, and I mean talking about Stanley Cup contender competitive in the next 3, 4, 5 years when a player, and this is their argument, a player the style of Bertuzzi is going to be effective. Because a lot of people, and I've heard this, and I think this is a little false, are equating him to like a Justin Abdelkader type with his physicality, where his advanced metrics have him basically plummeting after he hits the age of 30, plummeting hard. But if another team comparing him to Brad Marchand, that's a highly different comparison.
Harry.
And if teams are holding him in that regard, then what's so wrong with holding on to him? I mean, players are still effective. Brad Marchand's in his 30s, and he's still, on the ice, he's a pest, sometimes too much of a pest out here punching goalies in the face for no reason. But he's amazing pure goal scorer at the same time. So that's an incredible value to have. And
For sure.
You could get a lot back for him, and that would really help build the team for the future. But also, why can't he be that cornerstone for the team?
Right, and nothing I said in the first is me saying that he couldn't be that either. I think there is absolutely a route where this team continues the path it's on and is a competitive, Stanley Cup contender with Bertuzzi on the team. I think that is 100% possible, and that route exists. But I think that you can move him for multiple pieces and have the route and the timeline be the exact same. I don't think I believe that you can move on from him and bring in enough pieces in the return that you can justify not adjusting or pushing back the timeline whatsoever. I also believe that.
Yeah.
So I think it's and like at the end of the day, he plays winger. I think Nolan said this actually on Twitter. More people play winger than just about anything else. You know what I mean? Like and his style is not necessarily I'm not trying to say Bird is just like an easy to replace player. He's obviously been unbelievable this season. But you can find wingers to fill in. And again, I'm not advocating like, oh, we should absolutely move him. It makes the most sense, but it makes it is very possible to make sense moving him as well.
That's what makes this conversation so enthralling. Like, I don't want to trade Bertuzzi. I love him on the team, and I mean, the guy's gonna have 50 points in almost as many games for the Detroit Red Wings on this Detroit Red Wings team. He's got the best expected goals for percentage on the team at like 50.63. He has been any line you slot him on, he has been effective. But that's also, again, what makes him such an alluring trade piece. And I understand the argument that he's 27. The team's not going to be winning a Stanley Cup in the next 2-3 years, likely. Now, they could become competitive and become a playoff team in that span. But if you want to capitalize on his value, then yeah, I understand the argument to moving him. It would just, the problem with any time you trade a player is what you're going to get back in return going to pan out at all? And obviously, the higher round pick you're going to get, or the better player you're going to trade is going to net you the better prospect in return. But you have a very good player in Tyler Bertuzzi right now. Do you really want to give that up for the possibility that you could have a really good player, a younger, really good player down the line? The other argument, of course, is that he's making $4.5 million right now. If he continues playing this well, he's going to get himself a nice contract that's going to count against the cap
for sure.
So I mean, I understand both sides of it. I just don't really know where.
We have the cap. In that regard, on the other end, like we have the cap to afford him if we want to.
Right now, but when the team's trying to win a Stanley Cup, is that going to come back and bite them in the ass? If his play does decline, like some advanced metrics indicate,
sure. I mean, sure. If he's not as productive as what we end up giving him, like absolutely. But I mean, at the time pen hit paper, like we would have more than enough money to suffice it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And to your point, where taking a chance on one guy coming back and being that. I think that there's a very real possibility that it would be multiple dudes. Like,
I
like it's not going to be. I don't think there's any prospect out there, well, of reason that you could, 1-for-1 him for. I think you'd end up getting, a few guys back. So then you start asking that same question, but instead of you saying, oh, or trading for one guy that could turn into the production of him, oh. Can these two dudes, surpass or match the production? If it's matched, that's probably a failure on your part. If it's comfortably surpass, then that's obviously a good move.
Well, and you're automatically going to get a better package out of this deal than you would normally because he's not a rental, because you still have another full season of Tyler Bertuzzi after this season.
Which, again, his value was never going to be higher.
Yeah, and
because he's going to get more money in his next contract. And if you wait any more past this deadline, you're talking about one season versus a season and a half, or next deadline, even half a season versus a season and a half.
He's on a good contract playing a really good game.
Yes, this is, no matter what he does the rest of his career, this trade deadline will forever be the most valuable he will ever be in a trade package.
Best bang for your buck, definitely.
Right, in a trade package. He
could turn out.
He won't get better or worse. I'm saying in a trade situation, this is easily the most valuable he'll ever be.
Now, the one thing to consider, too, is his vaccination status. He is one of two active players in the NHL right now who is...
It's up to two now?
It's up to two. Archibald of Edmonton, actually. Finally came back from his myo...
In Edmonton?
Yep. It's weird. Dude's unvaccinated, had myocarditis. I don't want to get into it.
No. I don't want to get into it either. I just genuinely, that was news to me. That's all. I thought Bert was the only one.
So, yeah, Bertuzzi can't play in Canada, so that is going to affect his trade value a little bit negatively. But I know Canada is finally easing on their restrictions. So maybe a trade to a Western market that has more Canadian teams is in the cards. But I know as of right now, a team like maybe the Metropolitan Division would be the best place for him because they have the least amount of opportunity to play a Canadian team in the early rounds of the playoffs, at least.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it definitely throws. You're eliminating 6 teams in your trade market, so like that automatically makes it a little something more than normal. But that also hasn't seemed to. Well, I can't even say that because he's one of only 2 people that are on vax. So, but I mean, based on what the other trades we have seen so far have been. I mean, it looks like the market's hot, and it looks like I'm no matter what happens with Bert, I am excited for what we could potentially get for Letty and Vlad, because those ones I think are probably as good as gone
Yeah.
at this point, especially with the last 10 games. And at the very minimum, even if Bert stays, which again, I don't want any of this to be twisted as me being anti-Bert staying. Very fine with it. I think that those two, being that those are pretty much slam dunk guarantees, I'm pretty pumped based on what the returns have been so far.
Yeah, I came in here, I'm going to make a definitive decision on whether or not I want to stay or leave. I honestly can't, because there's pros and there's cons to both. It all comes down to where this team is at in the rebuild and how fast that they're going to rebuilding. All season long, I was saying that they're ahead of the rebuild. You know, they took a huge step forward. We were thinking they were taking an incremental step forward. Well, these last 10 games have proved that the wheels have not just fallen off, the wheels have goddamn exploded. I mean, this team is a completely different team than what I've been seeing. And so now you're playing that balancing act. Well, how much were they overperforming in the early parts of the season versus like what they are now? So now I'm starting to, get a little dose of reality. And I'm like, well, maybe, doing another Anthony Mantha-esque trade this season isn't the worst idea in the world. But then I'm also like,
it wouldn't I totally understand the value he has. And like I said, if Steve says, like Bert's part of the long-term plan and he ends up staying, then I'm all about it. Like he's going to be a productive part of this team for many years if we choose to have that be the case, and he's going to be a valuable member of the team when we're competitive again. I strongly believe that. I love Bert's game, but if you're getting 2 NHL ready prospects and a pick, or 3 NHL ready prospects, I mean, that doesn't slow the timeline down at all. It covers more bases on the team of what you need. Imagine you trade Bert, you get a high pick and a winger prospect and a defensive prospect. I mean, like that, you know what I mean? That sounds fantastic. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not. I don't. What I'm trying to say is everybody with everything today tries to make everything like
black and white.
Super black and white, or like super. You have to be all in or all out, or there's only one right way to do this. There are a million right ways to build up a hockey team. There have been a lot of different strategies. There's a lot of different ways. There's even more ways not to do it, which is what makes it so complicated. But there's plenty of different ways to build up a team and to go through a rebuild. There's not a set way to do it, or else anybody could do it. So
no, you're 100% right.
I think that there is a path for both options. And I don't want that to come across as me just like copping out and like, oh, like I'm just not going to give an answer. It is a objective in my eyes that there is a route the Red Wings can take and hold on to Bert and still be competitive. And there is a route to take that does not push back the timeline at all, that also leads to us being, championship contenders. And I'm very intrigued at what, and I trust Steve at the end of the day, which is really nice. Like, I'm not anxious at all, because I know he's not going to give him away just to give him away. He's not just on the block to be traded. We saw what we got for Mantha. I would expect probably more than what we
honestly,
got for Mantha.
because the only leg up that Mantha has on Bertuzzi is the length of the contract remaining. Is that the Wash Capitals were going to get more years out of Mantha than they were out of Bertuzzi, but Bertuzzi isn't underperforming like Mantha is.
Right.
So Bertuzzi, you got one more year of a guy who's 50-point caliber at the minimum 50-point caliber. That's a top 6 forward on any NHL team.
Absolutely.
So you're going to get at least first and a Vrana-esque player, or comparable to Tyler Bertuzzi as Vrana was for Mantha, and then maybe one other thing. You got the extra. I think you got the extra first-round pick out of the Mantha deal because you took on the Richard Panik deal or contract for the rest of the season. But
right,
I mean, this is guys. if they trade Bertuzzi, it could be a hole. And Steve Yzerman preached patience when he took over the GM role. And I know that he is looking at these next 2 drafts, especially, as very fortuitous for the Red Wings' future
This
with Connor
upcoming
Bedard.
draft got some dogs.
And next year's supposed to be even better.
Got some dogs.
So I can completely understand while you don't want to waste prime years out of a guy like Dylan Larkin and Tyler Bertuzzi, why you would look at those next 2 drafts and go, well, these are the years we really got to be in the mix.
And again, there's nothing to say you can't get both. We got both for Mantha. We got an NHL ready prospect that is part of the future plans of the team, and we got 2 firsts. There's nothing that says that that's not a really similar type of package that you could get for Bert.
Well, and right now, so the big concern is wasting the primes of the players that are here, wasting the prime of Dylan Larkin and Tyler Bertuzzi. You tried to trade Tyler Bertuzzi, Lord above, can't pronounce his name. You keep Dylan Larkin. Dylan Larkin's a skill type player who's going to age really well if he avoids major injuries. So even if you're not playoff caliber contender, and he's only 25, so if it takes another 3 or 4 years, he's still going to be in his prime when this team's good again, if you are bad enough to be in the lottery mix for the next 2 this year and the next season out.
And like I said earlier, there is a I don't want to just repeat myself this whole time, but there is a very feasible package out there that there's a very feasible and reasonable expectation, I think, to be had that if you traded Bert, the return would not be something that would push the timetable back 3 years, like some people are saying. I think that's pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, and I've said it a million times, and I mean it. I'm over it. Tanking, done with. I'm over it.
Yep,
it's dumb. Tanking's stupid.
Yeah, we all are.
We've done it for enough years. I'm tired of this team stinking. And this year, they've shown flashes of life. Like the 10-game stretch, again, been bad. But they've taken a step forward. I don't want that anymore. I don't want the tanking. But if the team is naturally that bad, then clearly they still need the talent. Hit in the mix for these great drafts. It is what it is. But then we're kind of starting to get into a different topic. And we have plenty of draft stuff to talk about
this
in the next few months.
Fun, baby.
Especially now that the team is probably going to miss the playoffs. We're going to have a couple extra months of time to fill. Scotty, we kind of burned most of our time here, but let's talk a little bit about the Vancouver Canucks matchup that is going to happen tonight. Last time these two teams played was right at the start of the season. Vancouver came to Detroit. Wings won 3-1.
And where's this one?
This one is in Vancouver.
So no Bert.
No Bert, and of course, no Fabry. So your lineup's going to probably look very similar to what it did the other night.
Second line Giovanni Smith, though?
Hey, you know what? They played so well the first
He's
time.
like that.
He's like that.
He's like that.
The Vancouver Canucks have been playing a lot better lately since they've undergone their head coaching change. They're 2 points out of a playoff spot, 5th in the Pacific Division, 30-24-7. Pacific Division is nuts that you're 5th in the Pacific, 6 games above 500, but that's a different story. JT Miller leads the team with 73 points in 59 games. Quinn Hughes, the defenseman, second on that list with 49 points in 57 games. Elias Pettersson, 42 points in 59 games. It goes down from there, guys. When it comes to advanced metrics, their best player is Connor Garland, 53% expected goals for percentage. Pretty damn good. They're a young, really good team who is a young, really good goaltender in Thatcher Demko.
Yeah, and I think the Canucks have always been, to me, like that one team that I can never like figure them out, I guess. Like historically, like they've always been a team that I'm like, I don't really know like what you're doing. And I feel like now within the last couple of years, they finally got a little bit of a direction going. And like you said, they got some young talent on there. I think that I don't know. Like I wanted to say, I think this is a winnable game, but like at this point, I mean,
every game's a winnable game. Let's go, Scotty.
Yeah, well, lost 9-2 to Arizona, by the way. We scored 7 and lost by 3 in this stretch too. Like this is the last 10, 11 games have been wild, as we all know. And part of me is kind of excited because I do think this is a winnable game, but part of me is also like, I am just preparing for the worst at puck drop every single night at this point.
You know
Not
what
maybe not
excites
the
me?
worst, but just mayhem.
You know what excites me about watching a team like the Vancouver Canucks, and it's a lot of the same reasons why I get excited watching a team like the Minnesota Wild play the Detroit Red Wings, is because they're a young, upcoming team, and
sure.
they show flashes of what Detroit can be in the next couple of years. Now, Vancouver had a couple issues at the start of the season. They had to oust their head coach. They had contract issues that was causing a rift in the locker room, but have since kind of come together and have gone on a hot stretch lately to get themselves back in the playoff mix. I mean, you got a young goaltender who has been playing great this season. You have Elias Pettersson. You have Quinn Hughes, who was taken just one pick after Philip Zadina. Quinn Hughes was going to be a Detroit Red Wing until Philip Zadina dropped. I'm sorry, guys. That's what was going to happen. And then Philip Zadina dropped. Not that I'm unhappy with Philip Zadina, but Quinn Hughes is really freaking good. And Red Wings need a lot of help on defense. But they're a young team that is up and coming, and I just love seeing teams like that because I'm like, this is what the Red Wings could be in the next couple of years. Honestly, I think Vancouver's timeline's been weird. I don't think they've really stuck to like a strict rebuild timeline. I think it's just kind of come together at the right time for them.
I agree. I think it started. Yeah. It started 2 seasons ago. You started seeing pieces fall into place, and like I said, they've always kind of confused me in my adult life, and now I think that they actually, if they so choose, they actually have a direction that they could end up in a pretty good spot.
Yeah. X factor in this game. If the Red Wings are going to finally break this 6-game losing streak, why and who is it going to be?
I can't answer why. I don't think anyone can answer why. Who is it going to be? Let's go with maybe.
It's hard to pick an X factor these days.
It really is. I'm just gonna go for the dog. Let's go, Giovanni Smith.
I knew you were gonna do that.
Let's go, Giovanni. Let's just. Everybody else has been kind of spiraling. Giovanni hadn't got a lot of playing time, and now he's gonna start getting a lot more again because of the injuries. Positive metrics across the board. Last game. Let's say it's Giovanni.
I'm gonna go with the veteran who has been playing a lot, pretty hot lately, and Sam Gagner. He had
a Gagner game, perhaps.
I think we're gonna have a Gagner game. He's been feeling himself the last couple of games. Tying his dad or beating his dad's record for NHL. Oh, and I say record, but like his dad played 946 games. Now Gagner's played 947 NHL games, and he had a goal, couple nice really passes, a couple nice scoring chances. He's in the zone right now. And when Sam Gagner goes in the zone, he's suddenly a completely different player. So that's my pick for X Factor. Any final thoughts, man?
Listen to everything that was said and don't take a soundbite and then freak out about it on this episode.
No, what I want to let us know what you guys think.
What was said.
Let us know in the comments what you guys think. Tyler Bertuzzi, trade him, keep him. What do you think your opinion is? Because honestly, like Scotty said, it's not black and white. I think there is a route for both to be true. I think there's a route to being competitive with both. So let us know what you guys' thoughts, because I sure as hell can't decide, because I love the man and he's a good hockey player. But when I think about that return, I start to get a little greedy.
I think everybody does. I think that is the dilemma. I think that is. So listen and then voice your opinions. And we ball.
You want people to listen before voicing their opinions?
I mean, ideally.
In a perfect world, maybe.
Sure.
500 subscribers. Thanks, guys.
Baby.
Where are we at in Twitter followers?
Oh, that's a good question.
Checking.
I think we're
barely one off. Oh,
we are one follower away from
1,999 Twitter followers as of recording this at 12:53 a.m. on Thursday. Guys, come on.
We are one follower away. That's actually really funny.
That is really too funny. Thanks for making Locked On Red Wings your first listen every single day. Now make your second listen Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Hosts Steele Roden and Flip Livingstone help you become the expert of your fantasy league. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Scotty and I will be back tomorrow with a post-game recap. Better be at 2,000 at that time, guys, or I'm going to come after you. Every single one of you individually. Same time, same place. It's your team every day. I love you. I love you guys. Seriously. I wasn't being real.